The battlefield was silent now. A thick mist clung to the ground, and the bodies of men lay scattered across the red soil. A woman stood at the center of it all, her spear coated with blood. Her name was Adoni, and though she was drenched in sweat and sorrow, her eyes burned with triumph. She had led her people to victory. But this wasn't just her story. This was the story of betrayal, war, and the uprising that changed the fate of their village forever. Adoni, a wounded soldier, groaned from behind her. She turned, her heart heavy. It was Olimide, her younger brother, who had fought bravely by her side. He clutched his side, blood seeping through his fingers. "You've done it, sister. You've saved us," he whispered, his voice weak. Adoni knelt beside him, her spear clattering to the ground. "No, Olimide," she said, her voice trembling. "It's not over yet. The enemy might have retreated, but their leader, the cruel chief Okambi, was still alive. And as long as he lived, their people would never truly be free." Adoni scanned the field, her eyes searching for Okambi's banner. He had been here, she had seen him earlier, standing tall and proud, ordering his men to crush the uprising. But now, there was no sign of him. "Where is he?" she muttered under her breath. Suddenly, a faint sound broke through the stillness, a horn, deep and mournful, echoing from the forest beyond the battlefield. Adoni's heart sank. The retreating soldiers were regrouping. A man limped toward her, holding his shattered shield. It was Folarin, one of the village elders who had fought alongside her. "Adoni," he said, his voice heavy. "We've won here, but Okambi has not given up. He'll come back with more men. We must leave this place and prepare for what's next." "No," Adoni said firmly, standing tall despite the ache in her body. "We will not run. If we run, he will destroy everything we've built. We end this now." She looked around at the surviving villagers, their faces pale and tired but filled with determination. These were farmers, hunters, and women who had turned into warriors overnight. They had fought bravely, spilling blood to defend their land and families. Adoni raised her voice. "Okambi thinks we are weak. He thinks we will hide. But he is wrong. We fight not for power, not for riches, but for freedom. This is our land. We will not bow to him." The villagers roared in response, their spirits lifting despite their wounds. "Take the wounded back to the village," she commanded, her voice steady. "Those who can still fight, follow me. We will find Okambi before he finds us." Olimide tried to stand, but his legs buckled. "Adoni, you can't do this alone," he said, his voice strained. She knelt by him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done enough, little brother. Rest now. I will finish this." As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the land, Adoni and a small group of warriors disappeared into the forest, following the faint sound of the enemy's retreat. The trees were thick and the air was heavy, but Adoni moved with purpose, her spear ready in her hand. Hours passed, and the group finally stumbled upon a clearing. There, under the light of a pale moon, stood Okambi and his remaining men. They were tired and battered, but Okambi still held his head high, his armor gleaming in the moonlight. Adoni's heart pounded. This was her chance to end it all. She signaled to her warriors to surround the clearing, moving quietly through the underbrush. As they took their positions, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence. "Okambi," she called. The chief turned, his eyes narrowing as he spotted her. For a moment, he looked surprised, then amused. "You," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "A woman thinks she can challenge me." Adoni didn't flinch. She raised her spear and pointed it at him. "Your time is over, Okambi. Surrender now, or face the end." Okambi laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You think this is over, Adoni? You think you've won because you've killed a few of my men. You are nothing but a foolish woman leading foolish people. Adoni took a step forward, her grip tightening on her spear. And you are a cruel man leading a doomed army. Let us end this, Okambi. Here and now. The chief drew his sword, its blade gleaming under the moonlight. Very well, he said. Let us end it. The clearing erupted into chaos as Adoni and her warriors clashed with Okambi's men. The sound of metal on metal filled the air, and the ground shook with the weight of the battle. Adoni fought with everything she had, her movement swift and precise. Finally, she found herself face to face with Okambi. He swung his sword at her, but she ducked and thrust her spear forward, grazing his shoulder. He growled in anger, lunging at her again. The battle raged on, and for a moment, it seemed as though neither would win. But then, with one final, desperate strike, Adoni drove her spear into Okambi's chest. The chief staggered, his sword falling from his hand. He looked at her with disbelief before collapsing to the ground. The battlefield fell silent once more. Adoni stood over Okambi's body, her chest heaving. She had done it. The uprising was over. But as she looked around at her warriors, many wounded, some fallen, she felt no joy. Only relief, and the heavy weight of what lay ahead. We've won, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. But the fight to rebuild has just begun.